There is a road that does not appear on any map, and if you enter it, time stops. I am not exaggerating. My clock stayed stuck at the same time for almost 1 hour, and when I managed to get out, there was no record that I had been there. This happened about 2 years ago. I was returning from a trip alone, driving at night through a region that I did not know well. Countryside, mountains, those state roads that pass through towns that you have never heard of. GPS on, low music, nothing wrong. I was tired but not sleepy. You know that state in which you are awake, but the head is no longer functioning at 100%. It was exactly that. And it was in that state that I made a decision that until today I cannot explain properly. I left the main road. Not because the GPS told, not because there was a sign, not because I needed fuel or bathroom. I simply turned, as if I knew that I should turn there, as if something had pulled me to that direction without asking permission. And then everything started. The road was of packed dirt, narrow with tall grass on both sides. Nothing out of the common for the region. This type of path appears all the time in the countryside. What called my attention was that as soon as I entered, the GPS froze. It did not lose signal. It did not recalculate. It froze. The screen stayed frozen with the map of the main highway that I had just left, as if the application simply did not recognize that I had gone to another place. I stopped the car, closed the app, opened again. The GPS took about 30 seconds to load, which had never happened before with this cell phone. And when it loaded, it showed my location in the middle of a blank field, without road, without place name, only a blue dot blinking in nothing. I took a screenshot of that. I still have that photo. Logic said for me to go back, but the road in front of me was straight, clean, without holes, and far ahead it was possible to see what seemed to be a light, like the light of a small town on the horizon. And I thought, it must be some village. The road just is not on the map yet. This happens with old rural roads. I continued. The first 10 minutes were completely normal. The road continued straight, the grass on both sides was decreasing, and the light on the horizon seemed to be getting closer, although too slowly for the distance that I was covering. It was then that I noticed the first strange thing. The car clock marked 11:14 p.m. when I entered the road. After driving what seemed to me about 15 minutes, I looked at the clock again. 11:14 p.m. I thought that the clock had frozen. I tapped lightly on the panel. Silly thing, but we do that. The clock continued functioning. The digits blinked normally, but the time did not advance. I took the phone to check. The phone marked 11:14 p.m. too. I stayed stopped for a moment, trying to process this. I put the car in neutral, left the engine on, and stayed looking at the clock for about 2 minutes. The time did not change. I looked at the phone. Same thing. I do not know how to explain what I felt in that moment. It was not exactly fear. It was more that sensation of when you realize that something is fundamentally wrong with the situation, but your brain still is trying to find the simplest possible explanation before entering panic. Clock with defect. Phone with defect. Some weird bug. It has explanation. I continued driving. The light on the horizon continued there, of the same size, at the same distance. I was approaching it for at least 20 minutes, and it did not grow. It did not become stronger. It only existed there ahead, stable like a star. And it was then that I noticed the second thing. The grass on both sides of the road was repeating. I know that this sounds crazy, but look, when you drive on a rural road for enough time, you begin to notice details. A crooked tree here, an old sign there, a fallen branch on the ground. The eye registers these things even without you paying attention. There was a tree on the right side of the road. large, with the trunk broken in the middle, half still standing and half fallen to the side, forming a kind of arch over the shoulder. I passed by it and continued driving. About 5 minutes later, I passed by it again. Same tree, same position, same arch. I stopped the car. I got out and went to the tree. I touched the trunk. It was real. Rough bark, wet from dew, with moss on one of the sides. Real like any tree. I returned to the car, reversed, and went to where I could see behind me. The road behind me was straight, empty, and ended in a complete darkness. Not the darkness of a curve or of a descent, a darkness that seemed solid, as if the road simply stopped existing about 200 meters behind. I do not remember having passed through any darkness like that. I looked ahead. The light on the horizon was still there. I stayed inside the car with the engine on for about 5 minutes, only thinking. I tried to call a friend. No signal. I tried to send message. No signal. The GPS continued showing the blue dot in the blank field. And then I perceived that there was a third strange thing. The silence. It was not the normal silence of a rural road at night. On a rural road you have crickets, frogs, wind in the grass, some distant animal. There is a texture in the silence. The silence there had no texture. It was completely smooth, like the silence inside a soundproof room, but in the middle of nowhere. Not even the wind. I opened the window and stayed listening. Nothing. Only the engine of my own car and my breathing. I closed the window. I decided to go forward. I know that it seems the wrong decision now, but at the time my logic was the following. Going back meant entering that darkness that I could not explain. Going forward at least had a light as reference. I continued driving. And then the road changed. Not suddenly, it was gradual. The dirt ground was becoming smoother, firmer. The grass on both sides was lowering until it disappeared, and the environment around was opening. Suddenly, I was in a kind of wide plain, without trees, without anything, only a huge sky above me and the road in front of me. The sky was wrong. I cannot describe this in a way that makes total sense, but I will try. The stars were there, but in the wrong arrangement. Not that I am an astronomer. I do not know the name of all the constellations. But you live in the same hemisphere your whole life. You know the sky at night, even without knowing how to name what you are seeing. It is like knowing the face of your own house. That sky was not the sky that I knew. The stars were brighter, in some points too bright. 3 or 4 of them had an intensity that seemed artificial, almost like very distant flashlights, and the distribution was different. There was a dense cluster on the east side that I had never seen before, a milky band that was not the Milky Way. It was in the wrong place and had a slightly different color, more bluish. I stopped the car in the middle of the plain and got out. I stayed looking at the sky for a long time. The silence continued absolute. The air was still, without wind, and had a strange temperature. Not cold, not hot, like a neutral temperature that you do not feel on the skin, as if the air did not exist. And then I saw the light. Not the distant light on the horizon that I was following, a different light, on the right side, about 300 meters from the road, low, almost close to the ground, with a yellowish and soft glow. Stable. It did not blink. It did not move. I stayed looking at it for a while. Part of me wanted to go there. A much smaller but much more intelligent part said not to do that. I stayed where I was. And then the light disappeared. It did not turn off. It disappeared, as if someone had turned a corner, only that there was no corner. It was a flat plain in all directions. I entered the car, locked the doors, and stayed with the hands on the steering wheel trying to decide what to do. My heart was accelerated, but my head was strangely calm. That type of calm that comes when you are with so much fear that panic cannot even form properly. I looked at the clock, 11:14 p.m. Still. It was then that I decided that I needed to get out of there, independent of what was behind me in that darkness. I made a U-turn. I went slowly in the beginning, with fear of what I was going to find when I reached the point where the road seemed to end. But as I approached, the darkness was giving way. The road continued. It was only a tight curve that for some reason seemed a dead end when I was looking from inside. I continued driving back. I passed by the tree with the broken trunk. I passed by the stretch with the tall grass. And after about 10 minutes, the headlights illuminated asphalt. The dirt road ended in a gravel entrance that led back to the state highway. I was back. I put the car on the highway, turned on the interior light, and looked at the clock. 11:14 p.m. I took the phone. Signal returned at the same moment, 3 bars. The time on the phone updated immediately, 12:03 a.m. Almost 1 hour had passed. The car clock was showing 11:14 p.m., when in reality it was 12:03 a.m. 49 minutes disappeared from the car clock while I was on that road. On the phone, the time had passed normally. In the car, it had frozen. I opened the GPS. The application loaded normally, showed me on the state highway, functioning perfectly. I went to the location history to see if it had recorded where I had been. The history showed a fixed point on the state highway the whole time, as if I had never left it. There was no record that I had entered that road. In the following days, I tried to find that entrance. I returned to the region 2 times. I drove slowly through the state highway in the stretch where I should have turned, paying attention to every detail on the shoulder. I did not find anything. No entrance, no dirt road, no opening in the grass, as if it had never existed. I showed the GPS photo to some people, the little blue dot in the blank field, without road, without reference. Everyone found it strange, but no one had explanation. A friend who understands technology said that it could be a bug, a mapping failure, some problem with the satellite. Possible, but it does not explain the clock. It does not explain the silence. It does not explain the sky. I researched about the region after. I did not find anything specific about that stretch of road, no local legend, no story, no similar report. But I found one thing. An old forum from about 10 years ago where someone described an experience in a stretch of state road in the countryside that I will not name because I still do not know if I want people to know where it is. The person described a road that left the main road that did not appear on the GPS and where time stopped. The person had returned without understanding what had seen. At the end of the post, the person wrote one thing that got me. The person said, "The part that scares me the most is not what happened inside. It is that when I left, I felt that I was leaving something behind, as if a part of me was still there." I read that and stayed in silence for a while, because that is exactly what I feel. I do not know what that road was. I do not know what that place is. An old forum from about 10 years ago where someone described an experience in a stretch of state road in the countryside that I will not name because I still do not know if I want people to know where it is. The person described a road that left the main road that did not appear on the GPS and where time stopped. The person had returned without understanding what had seen. At the end of the post, the person wrote one thing that got me. The person said, "The part that scares me the most is not what happened inside. It is that when I left,
I felt that I was leaving something behind, as if a part of me was still there. I read that and stayed in silence for a while, because that is exactly what I feel. I do not know what that road was. I do not know what that place is. I do not know if it was a failure of my perception, some phenomenon that science still has not mapped, or something that does not have explanation in the vocabulary that I know. What I know is that I entered in some place that I was not prepared to understand, and that I left from there with the wrong clock, without record of where I was, and with the persistent sensation that the place still exists, that the road still is there, waiting for someone to turn into it, waiting for someone who, like me, will think that there is a simple explanation and will continue. If you have already taken road at night, pay attention the next time that you feel the desire to turn where you should not. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe and leave the like on the video.